Unlock your potential today at skillbakery.com.
In this one, we will be exploring Redux middleware and we'll see why we need Redux Thunk and how to handle asynchronous actions in Redux. By the end of this, we will be able to fetch API data and store it in Redux using Redux Thunk package. So what is middleware in Redux? Middleware in Redux is a function that sits between dispatching an action and the reducer. It allows us to intercept actions before they reach the reducer, modify, delay, or log actions, handle asynchronous operations like API calls. So in short, middleware allows us to extend Redux functionality. Now, why do we need Redux Thunk? Redux is synchronous by default, meaning it cannot handle async operations like fetching data from an API. Since Redux reducers must be pure functions, we cannot perform asynchronous calls inside them. So the solution for this is to make use of Redux Thunk, which allows us to dispatch async actions. It enables us to return a function inside an action instead of a plain object. So the first thing is installing Redux Thunk, and that we can do using the npm install Redux Thunk command. Now, once we have installed Redux Thunk, the next step is to go to our store.js file and over here, incorporate that by importing Thunk from Redux Thunk. So here we have imported Thunk from Redux Thunk, and then we will be using the middleware along with the reducers that we have. So here we have our reducer, and next we'll have our middleware configured. So here we have middleware, get default middleware, and concat Thunk. Now Redux can handle asynchronous actions. Now let's go back to our to-do-slice.js file, and over here you can see that we have our reducers, we have our initial state. Let's update it a bit so that we have few other attributes included like status and error, because now we will be handling asynchronous operations as well. Now here, along with reducers, we have another attribute called extra reducers, and extra reducers have three states: pending, fulfilled, and rejected. So I'll be just updating this so that we know that what state the API call is in based on this. So here you can see we have pending, fulfilled, and rejected. Now you'll notice we have fetch to-dos. This is the API call that we have to create, and that we can do just before our to-do slice. So here we will be going ahead and introducing our asynchronous method called fetch to-dos. Now fetch to-dos, as you can see over here, we have create async Thunk, and that we can import from the Redux.js toolkit. So here what we are saying is we're calling this to-dos fetch to-dos, and behind the scene we have a fake API JSON placeholder which returns some to-do items as JSON, and that's what we are returning over here. And here the extra reducers will log based on the initial states that it will go through, like loading, succeeded, or failed. Finally, here we are exporting our reducers. So using this create async Thunk automatically handles loading, success, and error states. Now let's save this and go to our to-do list.js, which is a component listing all the to-do items. Over here we will be importing useEffect from React, fetch to-dos from to-do-slice, and we'll also be using useSelector and useDispatch from React Redux. But once we have it over here in our to-do list, this is something which we will be updating now. Along with the fetch to-dos, we'll also be importing trouble to-dos. So these two will come from to-do-slice, and here we'll be getting rid of this method that we have, and we'll be updating this with our asynchronous method. So here we are first of all having our dispatch, and then we have to-dos, status, and error using useSelector, and then we're using the useEffect to fetch the to-do items from the API, and for that we are saying dispatch fetch to-dos. And here If the status is loading, we'll say loading to-dos. If it fails for some reason, we'll show the error. And here we are doing the same thing. Dispatch toggle to-do, to-do.id. And finally, we are exporting the to-do list. So if you observe this, we are making use of use selector to get to-dos, status and error from Redux. We are making use of dispatch, which dispatches fetch to-dos in use effect on component mount, and it handles API escapes, loading, and failed. Finally, over here, we are also using dispatch to access or to execute toggle to-do, to toggle completion. In our to-do list.js file, we have to incorporate the select filter to-dos. And now that we have imported it, you'll notice that we have also changed these two statements. So earlier, the to-dos status and error were extracted out, but now we are using to-dos using use selector select filter to-dos and status using use selector state to-dos.status. And after that, we are showing the failed status as error loading to-dos. And over here, status loading shows loading to-dos. The rest of the stuff remains as is, and in our selectors.js file, we'll have to make some necessary changes. That is, the first one is ensuring that it returns an array. So here, if you see, we need to ensure that we are getting the array over here. And next in this particular page is to ensure that we have an array before we go ahead with the filter option. So over here, we'll check if this to-dos is an array, then we will go ahead and do the filtering. Otherwise, we'll simply return an empty array. Let's save this now. So if you notice over here, we had this state.todo, which was returning the whole object. And now, if you notice in our to-do slice, we have this to-dos. So that's what we have changed over here in our selectors, state.todos.todos. And filter doesn't exist on object. It only exists on arrays. Now let's save this and run our application now. So here we'll say npm start. When we run this, we are getting this error as of now, which says export default imported as Thunk was not found. So let's go back to our store file. Here in our store.js, this is how we are importing the Thunk. Instead of this, we will be changing and importing it like this. So why we have to write this? Because Redux Thunk does not have a default export in recent versions. Instead, it provides a named export called Thunk. So here we are using that now, and let's save it. And then we have our Redux to-do list. And here we can definitely see 5 dots coming up, but I don't see the to-do items coming up. So let's open up our inspect element developer console. Over here, let's go to network and let's reload it. So here you can see that the text is definitely coming up. So we have title, ID, and completed values coming up over here. So this is getting called. The response is coming up, but we are not seeing it over here. So if I specifically change this particular li item, you can see that it is generating the LIs, but I don't see the text over here. So let's go back to our to-do list over here, which was iterating. So we have to-do.id, and then we have to-do, and here we have the toggle. Now if I open up this to-do component over here, you'll notice we have the li, on click, and then the text. Now here, if you notice, we have title instead of text. So let's go back and change it to title, and there we go. We have our tasks coming up over here in the list properly, and if I click on any of the items, it gets marked as completed over here. Let's reload. Let's add one more item over here, press enter. So here we have all the items now. Checking, as you can see, works fine. Toggling the theme works well. And if I click on completed, you'll see only completed items are shown. Incomplete will show incompleted one. Toggle theme is working as is. So we have learned how to handle side effects with Redux Thunk in this one. If you find the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe.